Okay, women in new beginnings, leveraging your skills for what's next. Change is inevitable, whether it comes from a family transition, a career pivot, or unexpected layoffs like those recently affecting federal government workers. This session empowers women to identify and leverage their transferable skills, reframe setbacks as opportunities, and chart paths into new, different roles with confidence. And all of us, I'm almost sure, wake up each morning, what am I going to do now? It can't be the same thing I was doing yesterday. So hopefully, persons today, our panelists, the three that we have today, will actually provide some guidance for us. We're going to start off with Latoya Asia Smith, who's Vice President of Employee Experience and Talent Strategy for Dominion Energy. It's all yours, Latoya.
Can you all hear me? Is this working?
Can you hear?
No? Is that better? May have to, yes, hold this, project. I will hold this. So thank you so much for the introduction, and we're very excited for this panel. I think, it's one of those things where it's a topic that essentially resonates with everyone, we think. Of course, there are people who've experienced layoff, they've experienced transitions that were maybe unexpected or maybe expected in the workplace, or just had personal transitions in their family and seasons of life. I think we've all experienced it. And really the thing that comes to mind when I think about this is women, we transition a lot in the workplace, in our personal lives, and usually it's while wearing multiple hats. Not everyone's a mother, not everyone's a caretaker, but we all have something, right? So really just want to start off by saying you are not alone. Whatever the reason that brought you here to this panel today, whether it's for yourself or someone else, we are all in transition, and all while doing it with many, many, many hats on. So I'll just introduce myself. As mentioned, I'm Latoya Asia Smith. My current title is Vice President of Employee Experience and Talent Strategy at Dominion Energy. Wonderful company to be with. I've been there for about 5 years. I started in the law department, managing counsel for labor and employment. My professional background is mostly in employment and labor law. I'm currently in HR, as you can tell by the title, so that's a transition in and of itself. But the quick transition that I want to share before passing it along is that I was working at a company as in-house counsel for about 5 years. And in 2020, February of 2020 to be specific, it was announced that company was going to be acquired by a much, much bigger company. And I remember at that time being very excited. Oh, this is really cool. And the more I learned about the acquisition, I realized this is going to be a huge change. Huge. I mean, I'm talking, we were at a 5,000 person company. This was going to be like a 60,000 person company. The law department was like 20 people. The law department at the new company was like 600 people. And lots of opportunity, of course, that's how it first sounds. But then you start thinking, well, at least for myself, I'm used to doing everything. I like when a matter comes in, an issue pops up, to be like one of the go-to people that can kind of take on different things and not be stuck doing like one specific thing. That gets very boring, and I get bored easily in work settings. So as I started thinking, I was like, maybe this is a time for me to transition myself, like to think about something else that I want to do, because I really love the company I was with and knew it would be a different culture. Long story short, that summer I started applying for different opportunities, interviewed for like one company with like 10 different people, thought it was going to be a great experience. They were hiring their first head of inclusion, diversity, and belonging, which I did that work at my company too. This was also like the same month that George Floyd was murdered, so there was a lot going on just in the atmosphere externally, lots of emotions, and I think with everyone that I was interacting with. So they had this role posted even before that happened, but of course they really wanted somebody now because there was a lot of turmoil happening in the company. So the short version is I went to the company, left the company that I was at just months before the acquisition closed. Ended up being a terrible decision. When I got there culturally, it was, I won't go into detail, just not good. And I was mortified because I'm like, I've left this great company. I could have stayed through the acquisition. And just the internal kind of toxicity was just not good. So I was, I had never experienced anxiety in my life. I was like, everything has always kind of gone the way that it should naturally, from a progression standpoint and just growth standpoint. I ended up leaving that company within 5 months, which was another mortifying, terrible thing for me internally, because professionally I felt like that looks very bad. But I ended up at Dominion Energy in December of 2020, would not look back. But I just share that with you. I know we're each sharing just a piece of like how we've transitioned and how things have maybe happened expected or unexpectedly. In the moment, I was, again, it was a very terrible feeling. Have never felt that way professionally. Ended up being the best thing I could have done from a growth perspective and stepping into something new. So I'll pass it along now to my co-panelist, Allison.
Okay, I'll try to speak a little louder then. So first, just want to say thank you to Zenith and Latoya. It's been an absolute pleasure working with these two ladies over the last couple of months. Been a great partnership, and we're super excited to talk to you today. My name's Allison Morley. I work for Hilton corporate offices in Tyson's Corner. I've been there for about 8 years. A little bit of a shout out to them. They have won the Women's Best Place to Work for the 7th consecutive year in a row, which is awesome. And then on Thursday, we just won #1 place in the world to work, competing against 23,000 other companies. So great place to work. So I would encourage you to consider them as a career transition. There's a Hilton booth outside, and I'll be there to answer any questions you may have that we don't cover in today's panel. Like Latoya mentioned, when we were coming up with the content of this, we wanted to share an example of where our careers didn't go the way we had planned, because not everyone's careers are perfect. And sometimes you can get in your own head thinking everyone else is running the great career train, but I might not be. So for me, my career shift and transition was I specialized in HR very early in my career in learning and development. And I ended up having several promotions. And then I could see that I was going to get stuck in that particular specialization. And at the time when I was looking at chief HR officers, most of them were men, and they were coming from the comp and ben side of HR. And so I had to make a personal decision to take a job level back up, a title cut, and a pay cut in order for me to move into a more generalist HR role to give me a better career pathway and more opportunities later in life. At the time, it's a bit of a hit to the ego to all of a sudden be seen as downgrading and people start to judge you. You obviously have the financial implications at home as well when your pay has been cut. It was the best decision I could have made at the time. Just looking back, I would have ended up stuck. So that's kind of a little bit about my career journey. One of the books that I would recommend reading, and it's something I speak about at Hilton all the time, is called Up Is Not the Only Way. And it is a career book about all the different career paths you can take, whether that's lateral, expanding the current role you're in, vertical, et cetera. So it's a great resource. Zenith.
Hey, y'all. Good morning. We are, and I am also just so honored to be here today and see all of you guys' wonderful faces. This is an example of you all showing up and pouring into yourselves. Can I just say that? I want to give you guys a round of applause. Let's all. This session is not only just about us, it's about you. So we want to make sure this is it's a conversation amongst us so that you all can hear our journey, hopefully feel inspired and empowered to act. But we also want to make sure we're checking the pulse from you all as well. So just we wanted to just share with you guys, we're going to be asking some questions. We don't want you guys to be shy. We want to engage because we're like Latoya said, we're not all in, we're in this together, right? We're not all alone. So in the back of the room, and we'll set some reminders, but in the back of the room, we have some flip charts. There's Post-it notes. We want to check how are you feeling today and what's one commitment that you are going to invest in yourself today to propel you forward. So just know as we embark on this conversation amongst the three of us and just share our journeys, we certainly want to hear from you guys as well. So didn't want to forget that as well. So I'm Zenith Barrett. I have the pleasure of serving as the founder of my own consultant firm. Thank you. Talking about new beginnings, right? I want to always share kind of sort of what drives me and who I am. As women, we are more than our titles. We wear so many different hats. And so I always like to share, I'm a native of Massachusetts, born and raised. Hopefully someone can relate to that. I'm also a wife. I've been married for 11 years to my loving and supportive husband. I'm also a mother. I have a 9-year-old daughter. And when I say they drive me, it's my purpose in life. I've spent about 15 years in the nonprofit industry, so that human service connection, really pouring into our communities, really making sure that others can reach their fullest potential and thrive. I'm a relationship builder. I love pouring into other people and really cultivating relationships, and that's one of the reasons why I want to say this is an investment in you all. I'm also purpose-driven. So for those of you who are not aware, my name, the meaning of Zenith means, does anybody know the meaning of Zenith mean? There it is, the highest point. My goodness, I feel like my parents had the foresight on that. And I really think the meaning of our name, I heard it in a different session, it's my North Star. It's really helping people reach their zenith, hence the Zenith Agency. So as we talk about new beginnings, it can look completely different. I told you I spent 15 years in the nonprofit industry. I've had a lot of highs, lows, blessings, and lessons. And in April, my position was eliminated. You talking about shock? You talking about a real career pivot? But I've made sure I was very intentional to say, I'm not going to allow that elimination to define who I am. I'm going to make sure that is not going to be a part of my identity, but more so my testimony, to inspire and empower other people. And so I was very intentional to make sure of that, and that really ordered my steps. I will say my career pivot propelled me forward and purposely positioned me to open up the Zenith Agency. And now I can say, not only am I an executive leader, but I'm also a business owner. I can also pour into other people. And again, thinking about purpose, right? The purpose in life is to help people reach their zenith, their highest point. I'm here to serve you guys in so many different ways. So that's just a little bit about me.
Maybe? Yes, okay. All right.
I can project my voice now. There it is. All right. So as I mentioned, we want to get this going. We want to engage with you, empower you all. So we wanted to check the pulse. We know that this year and even years prior, it's been a little different, right? We are in this conference to really lead the way. So one question that we wanted to ask you is, what is one word that describes how you all are feeling about your career? Raise your hand. We want to do popcorn. Tell me how you're feeling. Just spit it out there. Joyful. Love that. Discouraged. We understand. Stagnant. Passionate. Oh, I love that. Go ahead. Uncertain. Inspired. All right. I see another. Hopeful. Stalled. Okay. All right. I'm gonna have to have you explain that a little bit more. But I see in the back. Uncertain. I understand. I seen a hand. Yes. Empowered. There it is. Any more? I see a hand in the back. Stressed. Tell me about it. Exhausted. Exhausted. Grateful. Okay. Intrigued. Okay. Yes. On point. Love it. Love it. Take a couple of more. Anybody else? Yes. Say it again. Balanced. Ooh. Strategic. Huh. One of my favorite words, by the way. Multi-hyphenate. All right. Anybody else want to share? Creative. Ooh, got the juices flowing, right? Attacked. Attacked. I understand. All right. I want to hear one or two more. Free. Free. All right. Say it again. What did she say? Oh, man. Hey, right? All those, again, we want to be intentional, right? We are not in this alone. We want to really check the pulse of you all. We understand stress. We understand fatigue. We understand, right? We understand being strategic in our direction. And what does that look like as we embark on new beginnings? We understand joy. We understand saying, hey, we feel attacked, right? Whether in this world, in our families, and you name it, we feel attacked. So thank you all for sharing that word. We're hoping that today's session, as we embark on some tips and strategies, that you all will be able to take away some good takeaways to feel inspired, to feel joyful, to order your steps to be strategic, right? And turn those stress moments, turn those opportunities into something positive.
You to feel all those things at one time, because as you all were saying, I'm like, yes, yes, and I'm still saying yes, and I'm still saying yes. I mean, again, like I said, when we started, most of us are wearing many, many hats. I venture to say everybody in this room is wearing multiple hats, whether it's working, parenting. And so just know that you might be at home in the morning feeling stressed out with the kids, and then you get to work, you're inspired. It's okay to go through those emotions. And we're going to talk about kind of the range of emotions that happen, of course, during career transition and pivots. But these are all normal things. We just want to make sure, of course, the strategies and things we'll talk about, like, you shouldn't have too much of one, like, negative thing, right? Like, you don't want to feel stressed every single day. You don't want to feel frustrated every single day, but you do know that that is normal. We're all experiencing that.
Like, so many of us feel those same emotions. So just even being in this room with a lot of other women who have the same feelings is hugely important. So when you get in the car and you drive home, knowing that there's someone out there who feels just like you.
So let's talk about the emotional and logistical challenge, as I mentioned, in April, right? Thinking about a pivot to my career. I was very intentional about really pausing. There's a power in the pause, I think, that can help us, right? I'm gonna say that one more time. There's a power in a pause for us to rest, to reset, to reflect. And so when I was on this journey, and I still am, right? All those things that you mentioned, I still am. It was really important for me to really delve in and say, I need to take care of Zenith. I need to make sure I took 30 days to rest. I told my husband, I said, tag you right. No, I'm just kidding. I literally just said I had 30 days to say I needed to just pour into Zenith. Whether that was sleep, whether that was just making those connections, whether that was just saying, I want to be a better version of myself as a mom, as a wife. 30 days. It was important for me to do that. I also made sure that I started to journal. I made sure that I started to work out, because Lord knows when you have a full-time job, it's hard. And so I wanted to be very intentional in myself. And self-care, I promise you, has been a huge asset in my life in terms of what that can do for you guys on this emotional journey. I also wanted to be intentional about really planning out my next chapter. And so I have 3 buckets that I'm very intentional, and I like the word strategic. I looked at it as, who can I connect with? How do I leverage my network, right? To help me, to introduce me, to help me with connecting to different job opportunities, or in my case, as I'm launching my own business. Who are my go-tos that can truly help me make those connections? Very intentional about who can I collaborate with. I got to give a shout out to some of my friends in the Danville, Martinsville area that are here, that have been a huge support as well. And it's all about, how do you collaborate? What does that look like? And collaboration doesn't mean we got to work and build a partnership. It's about, I'm here to support you, right? How do I collaborate to say, I know this person, what can we do together? And then one thing that was always important to me was continuing to show up for my community. My community has fueled me in more ways than one during this journey, and it was important for me to continue to make that impact. And so I was very intentional about volunteering, very intentional about continuing to serve on boards. I had more time. And making sure that I was pouring back into the community that has been so great to me. And so planning out your steps. And then I was very intentional. Coffee and chat. That coffee is my go-to beverage, but really being intentional about making sure that I carved out time to set up meetings with people that knew more, that had a different network that I have, and I know we'll get into leveraging your network and your influence as well, but that was important. Coffee and chat. I don't know how many I had on my calendar. My husband said, "You're more busy than ever." And so that was really important as I really helped to plan my next chapter. And then also, I wanted to activate my network, identify the types of opportunities, jobs, opportunities, or businesses that served me. And then when we're thinking about embracing the new beginnings, boy, it was the shift. There was something in me that was shifting and morphing in me that I probably can't even explain. It was just a feeling that I had. And so the shift, I wanted to make sure that in this season in my life, it looked different, it felt different, and I was really taking all the blessings, all the losses that I had, and really helping me step into and walk into a different purpose, and then really embracing the new journey. And so the new journey, as I mentioned, is just really about starting my own consultant business, really wearing this hat on entrepreneur, and also entrepreneurship, and then also just being a business owner. That's a whole different type of leadership. I see some faces. It is, right? And so it's important for me to say, I told my husband, because he's into sports, like, people can dribble with their right. Now I'm dribbling with my left, right? I'm trying to exercise something that is not necessarily an expert in, right? And so it's really important. But my goodness, when I say this journey has been a great journey, I have been really embarking on this and been really happy and fulfilled. And the Zenith Agency is doing well. So I'm really excited about that. And so as you all think about that emotional and logistical challenge, I encourage you all to take care of yourself, take care of your mental health, reset, rest, pause, right? But then also make sure that you can use your story, use your lessons, blessings to propel you forward, but then also plan out your next step. Be intentional about asking a woman that's in your network or even a friend to say, help me build this out, and what does my next chapter look like? And be intentional about walking boldly in your step and say, I'm gonna embrace this as much as possible. If I can do it, you all can too.
Yeah, I'm like, yes. This is therapeutic for all of us. And you know, I have a different slide to talk through, but, you know, really just as I've been thinking and talking, just even thinking about conversations we've had leading up to this, you know, there's the career transitions that are big, that are like job, you know, someone has a job loss, or like there's like an actual, but there's also things, I mean, we talk about like family transitions and things. And again, you know, many of us have experienced these, and, you know, I wasn't necessarily prepared to talk about this, but I feel like I almost kind of have to share just when I think about self-care and like taking the time. And I know many in this room have gone through this, because as I've experienced this, and have shared, you know, with folks around me, I hear so many stories of the same thing. We just don't talk about it enough. So earlier this year in March, I was 6 months pregnant, and I lost my baby. We lost the child. And it was very devastating. And I think that, I know that, I didn't take the time that I needed, you know, to pause. And so hearing that, Zenith, and so it's one of those things that we're growing and learning every single day. You may be good at it in one area of life, but then in another area of life, it's like you just keep moving. You know, and for whatever reason, everybody copes differently. But I say that to say it's not just the career transitions, or when you're dealing with things personally, you know, people at work will understand. I had people tell me, like, why are you even here? Like, go home, you know, but you feel guilty, all the things that we feel, and we want to just jump back in and want to act like things don't bother us. But it is so important to take that pause. And I reflect on this like almost every day. I'm like, I wish I would have. You know, you can't go back, but I wish I would have taken that time. I think I was gone for like a week. And that's just not enough time, right? But in the moments, you just don't think about that. So I just say that to say, whatever the thing is, it doesn't have to be this like public transition of a job, or, you know, something that's very major and obvious to people. It could be something that's personal, that you need to just deal with. Just take that time. I encourage my colleagues all the time at work, take vacation, put it on the calendar. You may not see me do it all the time, but I'm telling you, and I'm like, please just put it on the calendar and try to lead by example. But just taking those times, because even if it's not a vacation, it's a staycation, just to mentally get yourself together, to get through whatever it is you might be dealing with in that space. So again, just share that with you to say that is probably the most critical thing that we don't do enough of. And we make excuses for why we don't do it, because Joe needs me, Bill needs me, Sally needs me. They don't need you. You need to take care of yourself. Thank you.
Just in my own self-care journey, some advice I would have is it takes about 90 days to create a habit. So, and it also takes a long time to see results. So if you get on whatever journey that is, whether it's eating better, whether it's exercising, whether it's journaling, whatever that is for you, um, commit to it every day. And it's one of those things that fall off the bus, get back on. It's okay. I fell off the bus. Thursday, I was supposed to go to the gym. My partner, Joe, left, and I had words with myself as I laid in bed. And 10 minutes later, I showed up next to him on the treadmill at the gym because it's so easy to stop. And there's nothing wrong with like pausing and going, okay, I'm going to restart. So it's not going to be perfect.
You see on Instagram, it seems like everyone has it all together and they're in the gym and it's not real. Just ignore all of that stuff. They're just posting the good days. They're posting the good days. It's the moment in time. People get so wrapped up. I haven't been on Instagram in years, so I don't know what they're doing now, but that's the reason I don't. So just thinking about some of the transferable skills, again, you know, if you're thinking like kind of classic job transition, whether it's due to a layoff, or other kind of reorganization, you know, but it could be even be in the same company, right? You move from role to role. If you're going a different path. There are so many things, again, as women, I mean, mothers, caregivers, there are skills that we have separate from the job that are extremely helpful in the job, right? That make us, someone on the earlier panel said, if you want a job to be done right, give it to a woman. That's for a reason, because we are doing and taking on so many different things. So we may not have learned about leadership in a position at work, but we know about leadership and leading the operations of a household, right? We know about, you know, making sure things get done. And so there are skills, and I just want to highlight a couple of buckets. Communication. We think about whatever role you're in. You're likely writing clearly, concisely. You're sending, whether it's emails, putting together briefs, you know, whatever it is that you're documenting, communicating in the workplace. Similarly with your verbal communication, you know, if you're, you know, doing presentations, if you're, you know, whatever the case may be, leading teams and holding staff meetings. There are examples of things that transferable skills that you have that you may not think about consciously when you're thinking about how does this role translate to this, or how do I take my skills? Active listening, I think, I don't want to get into gender, but as women, we know we tend to be a little bit better with that. We actively listen, whether it's in our households with our families and things we manage outside of work, but also in the workplace. Those are things that, again, regardless of your role, you likely have that skill, and that's something that you can take and apply when you're thinking about, you know, why you are the best person for this next opportunity. That's a skill. Advocacy for people. I've heard this from almost every, you know, panel that I've listened in on, or, you know, even just our speakers today here on the panel with us. Advocating for people. Most of us are passion fueled and driven, and whether it's in the workplace, whether it's a team we're leading directly or not, just being able to advocate for people. And that is a skill, right? Not everyone can advocate for other people or have the skill of advocacy. So making sure that you realize that and are digging kind of into your toolkit and saying, what are the things that I have? In interpersonal and emotional intelligence, we talked a lot and we've heard a lot earlier, building relationships. It's not, I love what they said earlier, it's not about networking necessarily. That's not always the word. It's building those relationships, having those people that are with you that you really want to bring along and help connect you. That's the network, if you will, but it's the relationship. It shouldn't be, you know, I know this person, I want to get a job for this person. I mean, it's keeping in touch, having the chats and coffees and staying connected with people. And so those are things that you take. You had that in your role, this role, you're going to have it in the next role. So making sure you're like understanding that. Empathy and compassion, I don't have to say that to this group. I think, you know, we tend to be some pretty empathetic and compassionate people. I'm not lumping women into one bucket, but I think that is a skill that we naturally, a lot of us naturally have, and certainly it's something in whatever roles you've had that you can take forward. Conflict resolution is one. It's not natural, and I can say it's probably odd because I'm like I said, lawyer by education, but I do not like conflict. Oh, I hate conflict, and really wondered why I went to law school, because it was, yeah. But it's something that a lot of people do have naturally, and certainly something that you deal with in whether it's your home life, whether it's, you know, work situation. So that is something that you need to, if it is something that you are good in, it's a skill that you have, regardless of what role you've been in, leverage that. So whatever, again, roles that you may see, you know, channel that and talk through experiences that you've had. I'll just name a couple more. Cultural competence and inclusion. And many of us in our roles, we may be the only woman or one of the few women. We tend to have a different view from a cultural competency standpoint. We tend to want to understand where people are coming from, more than likely, not to say that men don't do that, but, you know, just as a woman knowing, you know, kind of how we show up in spaces and where we are in certain rooms. It is something that we kind of have naturally. And even if it's not natural, but you're learning it, it's something that you have a skill in, make sure to pull that forward. And then lastly, on execution and organizational skills, things like project management, prioritization and time management, translating strategy into actionable insights. These are things that you probably are doing, lots of you, in your roles. So if you're moving to a different role or different opportunity or starting your own company, leverage those skills. They're not, skills that disappear just because you walk away from a job. And so just from like a simple framework standpoint, think about the skills that you have, the things that you've used, what challenges did you solve, like what results did you deliver, and think about the skills that are attached to those things. So when you're looking at the job resume, and I know we've all heard it, women will look at a resume, not a resume, job description. Women will look at a job description. There's like, they've done 99 things, one thing they haven't done. I'm not going to apply for this role because I haven't done 100 of these things. Men look at the job description, totally reverse, right? I can do this. And so we have to obviously do less of that, right? We have to know that we can do it. But when you look at those things, really critically look at the job description. I can do that. I've done conflict resolution. I've done this. I've done that. Even if it's a totally different title, totally different industry. I never thought I'd be in the energy industry. Never. Like, it's just not something I ever, even thought of. So when the opportunity came up, I'm like, energy, I don't know. It's like heavily regulated. It seems like, I don't know, a bunch of engineers and, other people. And I was totally wrong. It's a huge public service company, right? We provide energy to people. If we don't provide energy to customers and businesses, things can't get done. The military, all the bases around this area, of course, data centers, we all love to use AI and, the cloud. But we think about hospitals and like all the like just light, right? And you go to other countries, it's not reliable, right? Lights go on, lights come off. And so I never thought about it as like a public service. So I never thought about myself in this industry or that I could add value to this industry. And I was wrong because I do feel like I'm adding value 5 years later. And so just thinking about the skills that you have and how that can connect into any role, honestly, is very important. So hopefully some of that's helpful, but it's digging into the professional skills, but again, also what are the things that you're doing at home? You're managing schedules, you're doing all these different things. So don't shortchange yourself and just try to inventory the skills that you have that can be used elsewhere.
Hey, just digging in here about job descriptions and applying for jobs. I had a leader who gave me advice once that I've used and I've shared, and he called it a third rule. And it was apply for a job where it's a third, you can do it, like with your eyes closed, a third where it's a bit of a stretch, and a third where it's like, oh shit. So like to try to push yourself to do something a little bit outside your comfort zone. And it is amazing how many applicants I see where men do that and women don't. I spend a lot of time on interview panels, and the self-confidence, and I think that's something that all of us need to work on as women, is believing in ourselves and working on our own confidence. And just like thinking through the skills that Latoya was mentioning, applicant tracking systems, if you're applying for a job and you're looking for a job, or you're applying internally, they're looking for keywords in your resume against that job description. And recruiters are dealing with hundreds, if not sometimes thousands, of resumes coming in. And if you don't have the right words in your resume, the applicant tracking system won't pick it up and won't like push you forward as a key candidate to some of those recruiters. And if you can imagine what it's like to be a recruiter sitting on the back end of this application and receiving a deluge of information, it's hard for them to find where is your needle in their haystack. So I think someone mentioned like the fear of technology and AI, and it is, there's a lot of people who are a lot nervous, but it's also try to use it to your advantage. So some things you might be able to do is like throw the job description and throw your resume in AI and have it compare it and kind of say, where are my strengths and where do I have maybe some development opportunities? And it might pick out some development opportunities. You're like, I actually have that. And it might just be you haven't communicated it in your resume, and then help it help you change some of the words that push your resume forward.
Just add one more thing as it relates to communication. We have the power as women, as we're sitting and wearing different titles, but especially in the workplace, to mentor someone or sponsor someone. So ensure that if you are sitting in a position of power, have an opportunity to really sponsor someone where you see their potential. And then also if there's an opportunity to just mentor them if they need to work on some core competencies and so forth, that goes a long way. And it could either be inside your company or your organization, or even outside. I think that is so important. That's a power we as women have.
So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about a couple of topics. The first one is personal brand, and a definition that I've kind of latched onto for personal brand is it's what people say about you when you're not in the room. And so one of the things I want to encourage you to think about is, what do you think people say about you when you're not in the room? And it's hugely important because it influences their conversations around learning and development for you, job opportunities for you, compensation around you. Personal brand is so, so important. And one of the things I want you to think about is like, how are you showing up? And what is your executive presence, and how are you seen? Because it can hugely impact all of those things. And it is simple as, you know, if you are currently looking for a job, you're starting your personal brand with this recruiter, with this hiring manager, et cetera. It's an opportunity for you to set the scene of what you want that to be. And that could be how you come across in your resume, how you come across setting up the interview, how you show up and what you're wearing to the interview, how you follow up after the interview. And it's amazing sitting on recruitment panels and seeing people who come in unprepared. My guess is they've applied for a lot of different jobs and they haven't taken the time to really understand your company's mission and values and what the role is. They're late, might not be fully dressed and like tie askew and not showing up as their best selves. Things like sending a thank you note afterwards, hugely important. If you're interviewing a lot of candidates and you're the one candidate that didn't send in a thank you note and you're struggling between some really qualified people, that can literally make the difference in a decision-making panel. Also, something that's personalized. We can spot the AI thank you generated emails like a mile away. So if you can build into your thank you note something that happened in that interaction with that person or a topic you discussed that shows us you really went away and thought about it. And then for people who are employed, who are looking for, okay, what is my personal brand within the organization? I highly encourage you to find a couple of people you really trust and you have a conversation with them around, what is my brand? How do you think people see me? Because if you don't know what your personal brand is, you don't know how you need to change it and what the gap is between how people see you and where you actually want to be seen. And it's so easy to have your personal brand damage and not know about it. And that might be things like you speak too long in meetings and you take over and there's other quiet people in the room and they never get a voice. Conversely, it's the quiet people in the room who never speak up, so people think you have nothing to say. So it's just being aware of all of those little nuances make a huge impact on personal brand. The next is sphere of influence. And I kind of see this as are people familiar with archery and like that bullseye concept? So sphere of influence, if you think about it, if you think about that really small, tight circle when it comes to like applying for jobs, is understanding and networking with potential hiring managers. Also think about like stakeholders and people who rely on that person getting the job and building those relationships with them. And then if you go out in concentric circles from there, I want you to also think about people who are connected with that hiring process. I'm in HR, and the amount of people who don't think about me being actively involved in the recruitment process and actually having conversations with the hiring managers and with the leaders making that decision, they don't think, oh, actually, she doesn't know me at all. How do I get to know her? And then also people put a lot of effort and energy into the hiring manager and not that next layer up. So the boss of that person usually weighs in. So one of the things I want you to think about with sphere of influence is thinking about all the people you need to network with and build relationships with. Thank you. So, and I'm mindful we're getting a little close on time, so I'll make a quick thing about sponsorship and allyship. So allyship is having somebody who's willing to stand with you, and sponsorship is about somebody who's willing to stand up for you. And they're willing to use their personal political power in a room to help you. And what I'd encourage you guys to do is look around, see who your allies are, see if you have a sponsor. And if you don't, what are things you can do to work on that? Are things like get a mentor, lean into team member resource groups, put your hand up for projects, create an environment where people want to back you and lean into giving you an opportunity that they might not have thought about before in the past.
And one of the acronyms that we've talked about, I'll just quickly throw it out there so you remember, but it's TIES. It's something that one of my mentors and he's a mentor and a sponsor for me. He's at Dominion Energy. He shares all the time with folks, and that is performance should be table stakes, right? You should perform, do well in the job that you're in. Image that goes into that personal brand that Allison talked about, like how are you seen? What is the image that people have of you? Exposure, like you could be doing a great job in your role and just head down, doing a great job. If you want to do, some people want to do that. They just want to be in the same role. But if you want to do other things, like you need to be exposed. So how can you put yourself out there? Don't wait for somebody to come swoop you out of your desk and, schedule meetings with people, and then that sponsorship. So just a kind of quick way to think about the things that you need to do, whether you're trying to get a different opportunity or within your own organization. And I know we're running out of time, so I think this is the Q&A portion. And one thing we wanted to make sure, as Zenith mentioned, there are Post-it notes in the back, so that near that back door there. So just as you're thinking, as people are asking questions, if there's something that you want to take action on, something you endeavor to do differently or think about differently, please put it on the Post-it note and leave it on the board. We'd love to see your thoughts before you all leave today.
Hi, yes. So I'm a former federal government employee. I'm currently looking for a new position, and Allison started to talk a little bit about the hiring process for larger organizations. And I'm finding that it is difficult to get through the screening. First, you have to get through the AI, and then typically your first screening is with an HR person. I've been most successful when someone's called on my behalf and said, take a look at this person. But when I don't know someone, is it wrong to contact the HR person that's listed in the job in the job posting? Like, is that not a good look? I've been curious about that. And then also, it was mentioned, you have these skills that match the job, maybe not the exact job title. Well, coming from my entire career being government, I have gotten some responses that say, we are going with a candidate who has experience that more closely matches the position. But I've never gotten to the point of being able to explain why my experience does match the position. So those are my two questions, how to tackle that.
Into that last part, just in terms of the job. So I'll say what Alice said in terms of using AI as a tool, not as a copy paste, but as a tool. If you run your resume, which is largely government, through and ask it, you have to know how to prompt it, right? And you might have to play around with it. Prompt it to say, hey, I'm applying for non-government roles. Here's the specific role. Help me translate this into something that is applicable, because your skills are very applicable to whatever it is. Like just knowing that you worked for the government for all those years. And also the power of a cover letter, or of course, being able to clearly explain, if there is question, because there probably will be for people who are just looking for apples to apples in terms of what you did before and after. So I would say leveraging, and it doesn't have to be AI, I say AI because I use it a lot and it's very helpful as a tool and something to help kind of think and be more efficient and think quickly. There's other ways you could do it, but if you try to explain kind of as you're submitting the information, or rewrite your resume in a way that does make it look a little bit different, I think that's helpful. So I would suggest that on that piece. And then my 2 cents on the recruiter piece is if they provide that, if they list a person, feel free to reach out to them.
Okay.
And it really depends on the company. There's some recruiters, like Allison said, who are inundated with resumes and questions, so they may not get back to you. But I know that there are some who do.
I say there's a couple things I think you mentioned in the comment of, is it wrong to do it? It's definitely not wrong to do it. My advice would be, if there's something that you can kind of connect with the recruiter or the HR person, I get a lot of just cold emails coming into my LinkedIn HR box. And if they can find some way to bridge a gap with me, whether it is they looked at my LinkedIn page and there's something we have a connection on, or maybe it's 2 degrees of separation of somebody that might know me, and just starting with that initial kind of connection, that helps. The other thing I'll also look for is maybe like IT might be really hard to find. So there's unique skills that I'm probably more likely to lean in on to go, oh, hey, I know they're really struggling with this opportunity. So definitely nothing wrong with it.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
100% wonderful. So my question is, it's about branding and really authenticity. And so just really quick, I just transitioned out of the military, retired after 25 and a half years, transitioning into, thank you, transitioning into entrepreneurship as well as public service within my community, and to me all of that is new. And so when it comes to branding and especially when you had mentioned, ask some of the people, how do they see you, what kind, all that kind of stuff. I'm like, well, this is something new. I still want to ask that question, but then how do I stay authentic in this space when there's always been, oh, you're too much, or oh, you're not enough, or oh, all those kinds of things. So how do you stay authentic in the realm of too much or too little? Thank you.
Yeah, it's a great question. So I'm just going to start with the concept of being authentic and whether you lean one way or lean another. First, you always need to lead with authenticity because people can see right through when you're not authentic. And then if you project yourself in a certain way and then you show up to a new job or you maybe move to a different department, pretty soon people are going to find out who the real you is. And then that becomes like, did you have a mismatch? So I think it starts with like the culture of the organization, also the hiring manager, like having the connection and having are we on the same wavelength, and do they respect who I am and do they respect my background is hugely important. My partner Joe is ex-military. He is actually an executive coach and coaches a lot of people who are doing military transitions. And I know it's really difficult to translate coming from a military environment over to a corporate environment. I know there's a lot of nonprofits out there who can help with how do you create your new brand and your new image. And so that's something I would recommend maybe looking into to kind of help kind of frame your story, because your story is really important. And it's just around how to position it.
A statement for yourself, right? So as long as it aligns with your purpose, you're always going to be authentic, in my opinion. And so encourage that, but don't forget the power of your personal brand on social media. So I'm a big fan of LinkedIn. You can share stories, you can share posts that you are here today and so forth. And that helps you really just strengthen your own personal brand and the things that you're into and what you're becoming and going forward. So I would encourage that as well.
Hi, I just have a book recommendation actually to share. So it's called Executive Presence, The Missing Link Between Merit and Success by Sylvia Ann Hewitt. And so she's a researcher specifically in this area about women in performance and promotions within the workplace. And so that's a book that I've kept on my shelf because it deals with that topic. And I go back to it kind of frequently to kind of remind myself of some of the advice that she gives. So that's a good resource for everyone if you want a reading recommendation.
Thank you.
Hi, good morning. I'm Shakara Lawrence from Norfolk, Virginia. And I was always taught that health and education were recession proof. But with the declining birth rate, it's going to affect the education sector at every level. So how do you navigate a shift like that in your industry?
Repeat that question one more time to make sure.
So I was saying in education, the declining birth rate is going to affect every sector, K through 12, higher education. If you are in the education industry, how do you navigate a shift like that in your industry?
So not in the education industry. Well, I'm in the energy industry. We're seeing there's a similar. I can kind of an analogy that in energy we know that we need to hire thousands of people to do all the work that critical because of the shift in the birth the birth decline, all the things. We know it's going to be incredible. It's already hard to find talent and to develop talent and to reach people at younger ages. And so we're trying to start earlier. Tap into middle schools, tap into high school. But really, it's about helping people understand. Again, it kind of goes into the skills like how can we try to figure out what the skills are going to be in the future, but also couple that with knowing that there's not as many people that are going to either be interested in the job or there's not going to be enough people, and try to, just develop and start earlier and earlier to get people kind of interested in our industry. I don't think there's really a way around it. We can't create people, but we can create people who are maybe interested in multiple things, people who may not have been exposed to the energy industry in the past or whatever industry, healthcare. I think it's kind of applicable everywhere, but how can we just get more people interested in some of these areas that are critical needs, it's critical infrastructure, big areas where we're going to need people. So it's not a direct answer because not, same industry, but same concept, I think, applies.
Thank you.
Let's give them a hand. Thank you. To Zenith, Allison, and Latoya, thank you so much for doing a fantastic job on behalf of Senator Warner.